All right, everyone. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and thank you so much for joining me today on the Friday Video Masterclass, picking back up with Premiere Pro Basics. And today, in part 5, we are taking a look at sharing your work and additionally how to optimize for different screen sizes and specifically different social networks. So basically all about export and Media Encoder, and a lot of the little hidden gems, some of which we've covered here on the stream in the past. There's a whole bunch of things, accessible little... Sorry, I just had a senior moment there. There's a whole bunch of really cool effects and filters and somewhat hidden things in Media Encoder that many of you may have never discovered. So I'm going to cover those, and specifically to pull up a little table of contents for you. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Sorry, I'm feeling so goofy. Export formats, working with presets, and by the way, formats. So right, we're going to spend a little time talking about this. This is like super nerdy today. So don't leave because you don't want to hear nerdy stuff. This is good stuff to know. But it's going to be sort of nerdy, detailed, not super highly visual. So, but if you want to know these things, good place to be. Working with presets, because people always ask about that. This includes the presets that we already have, as well as how to make them. Effects tab, hidden gems, going to go through all of those. And again, this includes a bunch of things like watermarking and overlays, as well as the ability to apply loudness normalization at the end of your video, or even something called the time tuner, which will enable you to chop off frames when there's sort of dead space to fit a specific duration of time. We'll kind of cover that. Direct publishing to social. Now, we've talked about this and have shown this a lot in various forms. You can still publish directly from Media Encoder to YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Behance, to an FTP. Again, somewhat undiscovered for some. We're going to go over that. When to choose the infamous max render quality checkboxes. We're going to go through those. And then kind of cut back to an older feature, but one that can't be forgotten, Auto-Reframe. So again, this is a feature that we introduced a couple of years ago. You may remember this allows you to take any video and then using AI automatically reframe the video based on whatever aspect ratio or screen size you're going to. So if you shot widescreen but need to deliver in vertical, you can use this in a single pass for that, or vertical to square, or some custom aspect ratio. And then at the very end, if we have time, just wanted to show you a couple of fun things. Again, this is nothing fancy, but a technique, if you're trying to deliver, say, a more cinematic look when you're sharing your video, you can do this by using overlay templates to kind of simulate different aspect ratios, basically. So like an ultra wide screen, a 2.35 to 1 CinemaScope kind of look or something like that. Or even if you're going like super old school 80s, pre-HD, pre-widescreen, 4:3, but with sort of soft edges. Anyway, if we have time, I'm going to go through some of those. Okay, as always, coming to you live on a host of different networks. So lovely to see you all here. Kevin, Steve, Norsh, Clever, Cody, Gareth, Misty, Z by HP, Ramez, Matthew, Philip, Tim, Umacorn, Christelle, Diego, Estuardo. Nice to see you all. Thank you so much for joining. All right, and I can see we've got a bunch more people coming to us over here on Twitter, as well as on my YouTube channel as well. So thank you for coming, Pico World, and Stephanie and Dan. Great to see you there. Okay. All right, and Debbie Mason. Hey, what's up? Theo. Brenda Hansen. Hello. Chris Olson. Hi, everyone. David Lewis. What's up? Very nice. You're using a Rode Lav into your iPhone. Yes, that seems to be a pretty common thing these days. Okay, by the way, also for the chat, I will of course be following the live chat over at b.net/Adobe Live. So if you want to ask a live question, this is the one that I'll be looking at. I'll return to my channel at the end to answer any questions that I haven't been able to get to. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and switch over to Premiere and let's get started here. And once again, my Stream Deck is delayed. I don't know why it's doing this, but it is what it is. Okay. Hold on. So before we start, Surge M, let's do this. Debbie Mason, I really love your streams. Oh, thank you so much. I, Dawn Marie, great to see you. Ramez Tabchi, hey, what's up? Okay, David Lewis is saying, before I start, it's using a Rode Lav mic into my iPhone, 24 FPS in 4K, and it's not in sync. Any ideas? Well, David, that's a, it's a potentially long question. Now, if I don't know how you're capturing, if it's capturing VFR, variable frame rate, we now have in Premiere an automatic detection for VFR video, and it can correct that. It's a drop-down menu. I don't have any to showcase here. If you ping me on Twitter, though, I can help you with that. Also, it could be something else introduced, but I'm guessing maybe it's a VFR issue, depending upon what iPhone you're shooting with, but we'll get back to that. Okay, so let's talk about export, formats, and getting started with the process. So here is, again, I was just trying to pull up some finished videos. Again, one that we did a while ago. This is my my young son doing his Shark Puppet Imposter endorses my channel video. You may remember this. Here, I'll just play a couple seconds of this for you. For those that forgot.
What, you oversleep?
Yeah.
What now?
Press the like button, or else I'll oversleep again. Okay.
You know, I was doing a podcast the other day, and they were asking me stuff all about quarantine and, you know, mostly around creativity and what did you do to stay creative? And my answers, I think, surprised them a bit. But one of the things I said was I had no shortage of entertainment, just letting my kids film and just be, you know, be their youthful selves. And man, it still makes me laugh. Okay, so I'm going to select this particular sequence. We're going to go up to the File menu, File, Export, Media, Command M, Control M on the PC, and go into this export settings dialog. Now, again, if you've joined the streams in the past couple of weeks, months, you know that we've been redesigning with you, the community, a new export experience which looks way less terrifying than this. It's funny how this export window, I mean, it's pretty traditional. It hasn't really changed much over the years. But, you know, when I look at it now compared to the new experience, it is, yeah, I guess it's kind of intimidating. It's just it is. There's a lot of gray and a lot of text and a lot of checkboxes and yikes. Okay, so formats. Let's start up here, up at the top. Again, we're gonna get nerdy and detailed today. That's what these master classes are about. Now, you got a lot of flavors, a lot of format options when going out to the web or wherever, right? So people who are new to video are always asking, well, what's the best format? Short answer, there is none. I mean, I don't even know what that means. What's the best format? Well, best for archiving without any sort of loss to the original export. Best for smallest file size, but, you know, biggest bang in delivery in terms of playability on all systems or networks, right? There's a million different answers to that question. The most common export format for delivering to YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, or any other social media network is H.264. And I think that may be the default format when you first begin to export. I'm not sure, actually. It's been so long since I've reinstalled Clean. But H.264 is your most common. And certainly if you're going to be sharing or delivering or, again, uploading to any of the aforementioned destinations, H.264 is the flavor you want to use. Now, of course, we're not going to get into all of the settings here because that's a stream in and of itself. But again, I wanted to talk mainly about the presets that we have here. And this is something else which, again, in the new export experience, we've made this a little less terrifying because, again, there's tons of presets here. Now, in terms of exporting to standard destinations, like in this case, you see right at the top, Adobe Stock or Facebook or Twitter or Vimeo or YouTube, we already have a whole series of presets that we've built for those specific destinations. And I am the first to say, if I'm going to any one of these, specifically, really the only, I really use two presets, all right? If my video is 1080, I'm using YouTube 1080. And if it's 4K, I use YouTube 4K. Now, that's not to say, can you use the Vimeo one or the 4? Yeah, whatever you want. Well, are there better options? Can I do YouTube and then, what if the bitrate's not high? Change it. There's so many options. There's always questions. Well, what about this bitrate? Is it going to look? Am I going to lose some quality? Blah blah blah. As a recovering sort of fidelity monster who used to look for one bad pixel in an export, or one moment of whatever popping or something in an audio export. I mean, does it matter in the grand scheme? And what are we talking about here, right? So my point in this short rant is saying that these presets are going to look good. You have all the freedom to customize them all you want. We've worked with all these networks to make sort of ideal presets, but you can customize any of this. And up at the top, again, actually the default presets that we go to are these match source. So what that does, and you can kind of see it in the summary here, our source media is 4K, 30 FPS, progressive, 48K stereo. So a match source is going to mimic that in terms of aspect ratio, frame rate, audio configuration. In this case, it's using the highest bitrate AAC. It's H.264. It's a compressed format. And then it's using VBR. In this case, it's a 1-pass. Some people feel differently about 1-pass versus 2-pass, or using constant bitrate at 10 megabits. Now, again, that's okay. Case in point, choose a different preset. If I go to my commonly used YouTube one, and I'm just doing this to show you the slight differences. So this one here, now again, I could actually, this particular video is 4K. Let's go to the 4K one. All right. So in 4K, this one is same frame size, same frame rate, same aspect ratio, but this one is actually using, it's VBR 1-pass, but it's a 40 megabit stream. So what's going to look better? Well, theoretically this one. It's 4 times the bitrate, That's typically why I like to use these presets, because the bit rates are, by design, pretty high to give you really decent quality using a compressed file format. There is always going to be a little bit of data loss, right? A little. Will you see it? Depends on where you're watching it. Are you watching it on a phone? Are you watching it on a 100-inch television? Presets will differ in terms of their quality, so be mindful of those. The 1080 version of this, by the way, is a 16-bit export, so even 16 megabit export. So even that, and if we're going against that match source high, that was 10 megabits at 4K. At 1080, the YouTube preset is 16 megabits. So again, if you're using a preset and you're like, oh, that doesn't look so good, try different ones. Pay attention to the bit rates of the export. And that's the one field that I'm going to focus on here. So if we look under the video tab section here, these are all your basic video settings. So these are all the settings for the export. Again, your dimensions, your aspect ratio. All right, there's that render at maximum depth. We'll come back to that in a bit. Software or hardware encoding. Now, interestingly enough, I don't know why this one's using a software encode. I always tend to use hardware encoding. But this one is saying it doesn't support that particular preset with hardware encoding, which is interesting. Okay. But as I mentioned, what you really want to focus on is this right here, the bitrate setting. Okay. Now, for HD 1080p, you really don't need more than 16. And if I go back to that, let's go to that YouTube 1080 preset. Okay. Which I believe is 16 megabits. Yeah. You really don't need more than 16 megabits for 1080p. You just don't. Google it, all right? Could you make it? What does it even allow you to go to? It allows you to go to 62.5. Could you make it 62.5? Sure. What is that going to do to your video? Is it going to look infinitely better? Probably not. Probably not noticeably so. Is it going to be larger in file size? Yes. Right? Higher bit rate, larger file. So, again, you can kind of investigate these things on your own. We don't have enough time to go over all this stuff today. But in general, for 1080p, I mean, and if it's any perspective, doing these live streams, these streams, I'm streaming out at 8 megabits. It's live, 8 megabit for 1080 is still pretty darn good. 10 is really kind of all you need, 10 to 12, and 16 is just a little bit extra. It just, for me, it looks great. Now, the only difference is, again, I typically like to do VBR2 pass. You know, some people will say that they'll talk about the differences and how you can, you know, if you're looking for it, see slight differences in color and pixelization and things. Whether you choose CBR, VBR, most of these presets take advantage of VBR. They tend to be even slightly smaller and sort of end result file size. It just depends. But anyway, that's kind of giving you an idea in terms of format, what you're going to use for most things. Now, if you're archiving, if you're preserving this edit, right, you're not sharing this on social, but you're creating sort of your final version. And from that, you may make social shareable H.264s. I would typically recommend, you know, ProRes if you're on the Mac, ProRes if you're on the PC. We support both. Or you could use something like DNxHR or Cineform, any one of those. So if you choose QuickTime as your format here, I'll zoom back in and we go into presets. Now, again, there's a whole bunch of presets. In fact, we've added a lot in there. You know, if you're trying to do, you know, something which again is to be archived, ProRes 422HQ is typically the one I would recommend. You know, someone might say, well, what, would you want to go 444? That's the highest quality. Yes, I mean, yes, technically it's going to be bigger, and you know, you don't necessarily need that. Again, unless, you know, if it's Spielberg, sure. If you require something with alpha, 444 with alpha, yes, that's an obvious one. But, you know, for the most part, all of my archives I'm doing in 422HQ, and I've never felt sorry about it. This is also where you can access Cineform. Now, many people ask, well, why, you know, Cineform has been very popular in the industry. Why would I not want to use Cineform? You absolutely can. And again, when I do Cineform, 12-bit with alpha at maximum bit depth is typically what I'll choose. It's going to be a little bit bigger than ProRes, but they're both going to look great, you know, again, for archive formats. And then everything else, I mean, it's just all these various flavors. You know, if you need to make, if you're still making, you know, DVDs or Blu-rays, I'd probably choose one of these, or maybe the H.264 Blu-ray is more common. The MPEG-2 Blu-ray is a pretty old standard. If you're looking to do H.265, right, high efficiency video codec exports, these are now, I believe, supported on YouTube as well for upload. You can do H.265 in here. If you need JPEG 2000, you know, all of these flavors are going to be in here. You know, DCP if you're doing digital cinema projection exports. You need TIFF sequences, Targa sequences, MXF for broadcast file formats, and there's different flavors. You can see DNX MXF, ProRes MXF. Here's where you can make GIFs as well. I mean, lots of different options in here. But for the most part, if we're going to the web or if we're going to be sharing with people, H.264. And like I said, I never use match source. If I know my content is 1080 or I want to deliver it at 1080 or 4K, I'm most likely going directly to those YouTube presets. Okay. Yeah, and Tim is saying 16 megabit for 1080 also depends on the frames per second, and that's absolutely true. For gaming videos, you can go higher than 16 megabits. Yes, absolutely. And if you're, that's the thing is, I never do anything at six, like I'm never editing, you know, because I'm not doing gaming videos, so I'm never doing stuff that's in 60 or 120 FPS, but playing in real time, you know, without slow motion. So yes, those things matter. Personally, I'm not a fan of 60 FPS for just real time. I don't like that look at all. It messes with my eyes. I'm not an HFR person, you know. If you saw the whole Hobbit thing from a couple years ago at 48 FPS, not a fan of that look. So, but again, you have more options when you increase frame rate, and you'll have different results. Again, playing with those bit rates. If you're just looking for something that's just going to look good and you don't want to mess about with it, I highly recommend the YouTube presets. Just try them. You may hate them, but you likely will like them. Okay. All right. So let's talk about creating our own then. All right, so those are the presets that are in there. What about just making your own? Because there is the save preset option here. Okay, well, that's it. You can customize or change any of these things. So let's say we wanted this to be CBR, you know, 20 or something, or whatever this is. Let's just scroll this. 23 megabits. And we're going to go into the audio tab here. Why is this slowing down? I don't know why. Oh, I guess it's probably trying to update the visual there. And, you know, I'm going to change, I don't want this to be 48K. Maybe I want this to be 44.1. Very unlikely, but okay. You know, here's where you can change it from stereo mono or 5.1. Let's say you wanted to make a lower bit rate for the audio. I don't know why you would do that. I typically will never recommend doing that, but you could. And whatever additional changes you want to make, it's as simple as coming up here and choosing Save Preset. Now, when you do that, it's going to allow you to give it a name, okay? And then you have two checkboxes here, Save Effects Settings and Save Publish Settings. So this is a perfect segue into where we're going to go next, which is the effects hidden gems inside a Media Encoder. Because there's a lot of really cool settings in here, which if you've never clicked there, you've never discovered before, all right? So let's click over onto the effects tab here. And there's, by the way, there's how many? 6 tabs here. Effects, video, audio, multiplexer, captions, and publish. All right. So the whole idea with this is you have a couple of options here to add a number of different things on your video during export. All right. First and foremost would be looks or LUTs. Now, the reason for typically using something like this is if you are someone who's like preparing, you know, rushes or dailies for a producer or a director or someone in your sphere to review, and you've shot everything super flat, but you don't want the director to see flat footage. They kind of need to envision it sort of in the color or the vibe that you're going for. This will allow you to enable adding a LUT here, and then you have access to all of the various looks that are in the Lumetri color panel, okay? Now, you can also import your own, as you see here. So if you've got a specific .look or LUT file that you've made, you can import those. But as I begin to kind of scrub through these here, you'll see how it'll now apply that look to my footage. And, you know, if I kind of scrub along here with this, I don't know why this is going so slow, but all right, I'm just not gonna worry about that. It's obviously applying that look to my footage. There's the original, and there's the version with that LUT applied, okay? So you have that option if that's something that you wanna do, all right? Now some of these we're not gonna talk about. SDR conform, not gonna worry about that. Very few people are gonna be using that. Image overlay. So again, this is like, let's say you wanted to add a logo or something like that, or some kind of little logo bug. Here's where you have the option to do that. All right. So you wanna stick your branded logo on here during export. Maybe you forgot to do it while you're editing the video. You can do that here. Okay. And actually here, let me see. I'm gonna see if I can find. See if I can find my. Was it JP downloads? I can never remember the name of this thing. Jace's Places. JPL? No. Jace's. No. JP logo? No, I can't find it. All right, you're out of luck. Too bad. Anyway, this is where you do that, okay? And it could be anything. You could put a whole image in here. It actually doesn't even matter what it is, all right? Name overlay. This is if you are wanting to, again, you can add custom text on here or just the file name. Now, and you'll see you can do prefix and suffix only, source file name without extension. You change that. So right now you're seeing, oh, it doesn't even have it on there. This is kind of useful, again, if you're doing dailies, you're reviewing shots from the day, and you want the director or whomever is reviewing your content to be able to say, oh, Shark Puppet, 001.jpg or whatever. That's the one I liked. I didn't like 004.006 was great. That's why there's kind of, this is sort of nice to have. Again, you can adjust the position of where that text goes. You can adjust the size of how that appears on screen. Why in Lord's name is this so delayed right now? Ugh, give me some other, is it the preset that's causing this to barf like this? Why is this going so slow? Oh my gosh. It must be. Okay, let's just try something else. See, all right, it's already working a little faster. Okay, so that's the name overlay. Time code, same concept here, you know. You want burned in time code for review. Easy to do. You can choose where it goes. You can choose how it appears, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Entirely up to you. And then we get to time tuner, video limiter, and loudness normalization. All right, so these I actually want to focus on. We're going to come back to time tuner in a second. We're going to use a different export for that one. First, let's do loudness normalization. Okay, so this one is particularly useful if you're trying to do one of two things. One, you need to have your audio conform to a specific broadcast standard at a specific level measured in loudness units. So when we're talking about loudness normalization, we're talking about loudness. We're referencing loudness units, or LUFS, L-U-F-S. There are lots of different standards for broadcast loudness. If you click on the drop-down menu here, you can see ATSC used in Canada and other regions of the world, EBU, obvious there, and ITU if you're here in the US. Now, if you wanted to conform to one of those standards, you could choose that preset where, for instance, the target loudness is minus 24 LUFS, okay? The max true peak of minus 2 dB TP, which is decibels relative to true peak. All right, you can say configure the true peak limiter or have it do it automatically. This is very nice. Or you can customize. You can be like, you know, I'm delivering this for YouTube where they're not following broadcast television standards. I want this thing to be slamming loud. So let's do like minus 10 LUFS, okay? Something like that. And I think I'm actually going to export this because I wanted to compare. Let's put this on the desktop and we'll call this loudness LN for loudness normalized, okay? And in fact, let's do minus 8. I don't know where this is right now, but I'm imagining this is going to get significantly louder, okay? Let's go into the desktop here. All those things are good. I'm doing this at 1080. So I'm just going to do a quick export right here. Now this actually leads me into these two buttons at the bottom below as well, okay? Where you have export and queue. Now if you use queue, that's going to send it to the render queue. So it'll go to the render queue, and that's going to allow you some level of sort of background rendering where that can happen while you're still working in Premiere or in other apps. If instead you want to do a faster export, but throw all of your system resources at Premiere now, you can choose the export option here. Now again, the main difference is if you hit export in this dialog, this is what we call a modal process. So you can't go back to the timeline, you can't do anything in Premiere. You really can't do much of anything. Yes, maybe you can go to mail, maybe you can surf the web. The problem is it's trying to suck every resource from your system to do a faster export. So if you're going to do this, you sort of need to be committed to this space right here. But let's go ahead and do that. Give me an opportunity to look at some questions. All right. Kevin saying good for reviewing dailies. Yes. Okay. Is it possible to create? Oh, is it possible to create or select your own poster frame for the final exported video? Poster frame, yes, for YouTube. Now you're jumping ahead, Armando, but yes, we will get there. Okay. Very cool. All right. So let me go ahead and import this. We just did that export. Let's see. Let's compare what these look and sound like. All right. Now, just looking at the waveform, okay. So there's the loudness maximized waveform, and where's the other one? Here's the previous one. So you can see that it's significantly louder. So again, if I were to play this,
Okay.
all right, and let's go to the same spot in this new one here.
Okay.
really good, actually. So that's one of the greatest hidden gems in there. Now, if you're asking like, well, oh, good, so I should export everything at -8 LUFS for YouTube? Now, again, you know, be mindful of different levels. And if you want to understand more about loudness units, you can watch some of my audio masterclasses, and we can cover that in another session. But that's pretty hot, you know. So what you might want to do is analyze the loudness of your existing exports first to kind of see where you are. Now, just real quickly, we're going to divert just for a second here. How do you do that? It's a couple of different ways. If you want to do it sort of old school real time, from within the audio track mixer, you can go ahead and you can launch the loudness radar. All right. I'm going to open this up. So this is a third-party plugin that we licensed from TC Electronics. And let's go into our Cinema Master here, which I believe is using, yeah, I don't know why this still says LKFS. No one uses weighted anymore. But this is using the same loudness target standard as the ITU, BS1770.3. You can see it right there, okay? So if you wanted to see what the actual loudness of this was over time, we can play this back, and this is going to give you a live, real-time average measurement of your program loudness.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So theoretically, this is the original was around -20. So oddly enough, you're thinking, well, it's kind of quiet on the stream. That's actually, if I were technically going to be delivering this for a broadcast output, that's technically too loud. So this would be another great reason to implement loudness normalization. If I had to broadcast to the ITU standard of -24, I would use that loudness normalization process on export, which would automatically attenuate this audio properly, and it would be broadcast ready, okay? In the case of what we did, we used it to really amplify things. So again, we changed the loudness, not just by approximately 12 decibels, but it's more than that, because you're talking about average perceived loudness over time. So that's kind of an old school, or I should say, that's sort of a real-time way to do it. If you want to go a little bit more nerdy and kind of have it create that average for you without having to play through it, you can edit the clip in Audition, which really is just going to send that final mixed audio over to Audition. And I just want to show you this. Steve, how can I hire this shark? He's not cheap, Steve. He's 9, but he's very aware of his worth. I'll let him know you're inquiring. All right. So here in Audition now, I can go up to my favorite panel, which is Amplitude Statistics. All right. Go ahead and open that panel up, scan it. All right. And this is going to give you really the true average loudness. And what's really cool, I got to hand it to our teams. This is where, you know, oh, did I close it already? Darn, is it going to save it? Did it save the output? Oh, it did. Look at that. So Premiere in real time using this plugin, you know, averaging around -19.7. And when we look at the analysis over time, -19.8. Pretty cool. It's very cool when both measurements are within 1/10 of a decibel of themselves. That's pretty awesome. Again, I usually default to this because I don't necessarily want to wait or play through it. I don't love that loudness meter, to be honest with you. It's fine. We've had it a long time. It's great. It used to be cool to look at. Whatever. I use this. It's accurate. It's really fast. And it also tells me everything in terms of actual, you know, true peaks, actual RMS averages, actual dynamic range leveraged and used, okay? You know, for my audio nerdness, I prefer this, but either one works, okay? And you got a lot of different options there. Okay, so that was a little on the loudness normalization. And AU's definitely faster, it seems, indeed, Kevin. Bernadette. Okay. Okay. High quality content right there. Okay. Just checking out what else we got in here. Okay. Yeah, Z by HP is saying, I've had to drop the data rate for videos being submitted to online conferences to get the file size down. Yes, and and that's the thing, right? I mean, I just encountered this myself where someone's like, yeah, if you can upload that video for us, that would be great. Well, it was an hour-long podcast that I recorded the video of, actually just like this, at 8 megabits, and because that's just my standard for recording and producing through Wirecast. And the file was, it was like, 2.4 gigs. And their system only allowed for a 2 gig upload. I said, all right, well, I'll have to re-export and drop the bitrate, I guess, which is what I ultimately had to do. I also cut out a couple little silences and things in there. But anyway, that's not uncommon. Okay, time tuner. You probably thought, he's going to forget. He's old. He's never going to return to what he was just talking about. But look at that elated face right there. I wouldn't leave you in the lurch. I wouldn't leave you behind. What am I saying? All right, the time tuner. Now, this is, again, another one of those, it's a hidden gem. So we can see here. So, great question. Who just brought that up? Who said that? Z by HP. Rick H was saying, yeah, you had to drop the data rate for file size. But what if your issue isn't file size, but it's time? So this is a great example. So this video is 51 seconds and 7 frames. And the person that I'm giving this to says, that's great video. It had to be 50 seconds though. Can you edit it down to 50 seconds? Now, I could. It would mean going in there and trying to find, again, we're talking, 37 frames approximately, give or take. I got to find 37 frames to cut out manually. That's at a time loss to me. So instead, I can use the time tuner, which will automatically look for areas of sort of no motion, no movement, or silence, and it automatically is going to remove X number of frames based on what you set this at. So if I wanted to go to 50 seconds, I can type that in, and it's telling me that this is going to do a 2.4% duration change. And you can see here, if you hover over these things, does it give you the tooltip? Yeah. So in preset use, let me see if I can zoom in so you can read the that tooltip there. All right. Let me see if I can get it to come back. There we go. Choose target duration to adjust all outputs to a specific target duration, or choose duration change to adjust each as a percentage of the original source duration. Okay? That actually is no more clear. I thought it was more clear than that. I don't know. What is that? To adjust each as a percentage of the original source. What? Okay. Sure, whatever you say. Let's see how it does. Now, here's the thing. If you've got music underneath your video and you're using Time Tuner, I get asked this when I show this. Well, how is it going to affect if things were edited to the beat, or if there were specific cuts on specific parts of the musical soundtrack? Well, yes, if you're having... I don't actually think this is AI doing it, it's just an algorithm. But if you're actually having a system automatically try and edit for you, yeah, you might lose some of those beats, some of those cuts, because it's just trying to look for areas of, again, no motion, no sound, whatever. It's not looking for the most aesthetically pleasing, it's looking for what makes sense that you won't necessarily notice. So if you've got music underneath things, this can sometimes, if it's more than about 2-3%, it can make for slightly strange transitions in your video. If there is no music underneath, it's typically pretty seamless. Again, depending upon, there's many factors, but this could be a real time saver, particularly if you're talking about this is 50 seconds. If you're talking about something that's 24 minutes, and let's say it was 24:15, but it needs to be 23:59, that's going to be really hard to go through and try and find those 15, 16 frames to cut out. This doing it for you automatically is pretty genius. Now, even though this doesn't necessarily apply specifically to this feature, this is a good opportunity to talk about those checkboxes that you saw before. First being render at maximum depth, which you can see here, and then there's render at maximum quality. Now, when we were talking before about formats, right? So if you're going from your master in Premiere and you're uploading to YouTube, and presumably you're probably uploading as H.264, so you're not using an archive format. You're using a compressed file format, H.264, H.265, MPEG, etc. There's really no point in rendering at maximum bit depth because those formats don't support maximum bit depths for the most part. It's really 8-bit media. So you're not really buying anything by doing that. If you're going to ProRes, DNX, Cineform, and you want to maintain or retain all of the data, all of that color information, then yes, render at maximum bit depth, okay? And the other one here is render maximum quality. Now this one, I think the tooltip actually tells you specifically, is it not doing it now? Yes, there we go. Oh, gives better quality. We changed it. Okay. You only need to check this if you are in fact scaling your video. So whereas before, remember the shark video was 4K, but I was going to export to 1080. Because I'm changing the scale, it does in fact benefit me to check that box. Whether I'm scaling up or down, you're going to get theoretically better quality in the render with that checked if you're scaling. If you're not scaling, this isn't doing really anything for you outside of adding a little extra render time. I've compared non-scaled exports side by side, and honestly, I mean, you know, no. So hopefully that explains that. It seems very tempting, like, well, of course maximum, to the max, I want everything maximum. But it doesn't buy you anything if you're not scaling. And the other one doesn't buy you anything if you're going to the web, okay? Right? So you're working in 32-bit float. You're like, well, I'm gonna now put this into a 720p 5 megabit H.264. You do not need maximum bit depth checked. It's just a waste, all right? So hopefully that clarifies that. Okay, going back to Time Tuner though, where we've gone out at 50 seconds, let's go ahead and let's export this. Put it on the desktop, 50 sec, click save. We're gonna do an export again directly. Give me some chance to look at everything. Tim Loomis makes sense, very good. What is the Loudness Radar plugin called? Yes, Estuardo, it's again found under the special section and it's just called Loudness Special Loudness Meter. Okay, or sorry, Loudness Radar. Not loudness meter, loudness radar. Loudness meter is different. Okay. And there's already some presets in here based on, you know, different standards as well. But as you saw, if you go into settings, same thing. You can customize this however you like, okay? And so many, these really need to be updated because really no one measures. This LKFS is loudness units weighted relative to full scale. But now everything is theoretically, I think it's weighted in the standard anyway, so no one really measures, no one uses LKFS. I never see LKFS. Tell me in the chat if you've seen LKFS recently. I'd be very shocked. Okay. Did I just export that? I did, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and open it. 50 seconds, import, new sequence from clip. Let's go to the end. And looky there, friends. 50 seconds. Now, I don't even need to play the original one. Let's look at this and let's see if there's any weirdness in terms of the edit, all right? Hi, it's Jason Levine from Adobe. Here's what you missed this week on Adobe Live. Today we're going to be talking about how Dynamic Link works with After Effects and Premiere Pro. We're going to take this particular shot, add some text to it. I want to create those animations over in After Effects. Right-click, Control-click on the clip itself, replace with After Effects Comp. And then I want to add just a very simple animate in kind of preset, quick preview. And there we go. When I click back over to Premiere, what you'll see is that this is showing me it's a linked comp. This is not a render. This is the After Effects project dynamically linked in the timeline. Okay? That means that it's fully editable at any time. Be sure to tune in each Friday, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time for new episodes of the Video and Audio Masterclass only on Adobe Live. One checkbox, time tuner. Type in your new duration. I just automatically edited out 36 frames somehow. Now, you might say, how does it compare to the other one? I don't know, but I watched it and I was like, yeah, that works. Now, again, I want to point out, best results with the time tuner between, 0 and 5%. All right. If you start slicing more than 5%, and I think it only allows up to 10%. If you start going beyond 5%, you can get some slightly strange results. That's not an absolute, but it's something to consider. Okay. All right. Perfection. Yes. Skyrim. Yeah. Wow, says Tim. Okay, very nice. All right. Okay, let's see. Publishing to social. Oh God, we only have 6 minutes. And auto-reframe. Okay, we got this. All right. So that's those are the hidden gems of the effects. Let's talk about direct publishing to social. So we're just going to go back one more time. Let's choose a different one here. Oh, this was another, that's a weird shot of me. From a video, a little music video I did a couple years ago for Free to Be You and Me with updated lyrics there. Okay, publishing directly to social networks. So, publish. It's the 6th and final tab. Now again, this is something which, if you've taken a look at the Premiere Pro beta, available now, you can see how we're reconfiguring this to bring this more front and center. Basically, the idea here is that instead of exporting in Premiere and then going to YouTube and uploading, or exporting in Premiere and then going to Facebook and then uploading, you can do it in one pass, all right? So all that is involved here is, you select the place where you want to go, in this case, YouTube, all right? And you can see I'm already signed in as myself, okay? And by the way, this is answering that question about custom thumbnails, whoever was asking that moments ago. Directly from here, I can tell it, whatever playlists I want. None in this case. I don't know why it's not actually showing my playlists. That's weird. Okay. Give it a title. So this is where you're adding metadata, right? Description, privacy, tags, very important. And then custom thumbnail. So the really nice thing is, so you can frame from the source video, all right, which is very cool. And you'll see here you have the option to use the current frame. So this is really cool because I could say, yeah, I want that as my thumbnail, use current frame, and it takes a snap of that, and that now becomes the thumbnail. Or if you have a custom thumbnail, for instance, from image file, thumbnail image file, I happen to have it because here's the one that we just created. So this was something is happening featuring the song Mary Had a Little Lamb. So that's the thumbnail I want for this. Click open, and now it tells me that it's loaded that custom thumbnail JPEG. All right. So, and then you have the option here, you can delete the local file after upload if you want. That's entirely up to you. The point is that when you set this up, right, you can now, well, first of all, this is great because again, this will export and then upload to YouTube and you don't have to worry about it, okay? If in fact you want to be reusing this same concept, now the thumbnail thing gets a little tricky because you'd obviously swap those out for every video, but you could save a preset with the publish settings as part of the preset. So let's say with every video you automatically upload to YouTube, Vimeo, Behance, Facebook, and local, you could have that saved as part of the preset. And you can also have the effects settings saved. So maybe every video after you do a loudness normalization, you're like, you know what? Jason showed me publishing at -8 LUFS, which everyone is gonna hate me for because it's too loud for videos, but do it. Do it. You can save those effects settings, okay? It's really cool so that you don't have to go back there. And that's the same as, let's say, you want to, every video you export, you want your logo bug, your overlay, your branding, your watermark, save it as part of the effects settings, as part of your preset. All right? Really cool. Okay. So for our last couple of minutes here, let's talk about auto-reframe. All right. So again, for those of you unfamiliar, the concept of auto-reframe is that you can take something like this widescreen video, and Premiere Pro using Adobe Sensei will automatically scan and analyze the region of interest, in this case of every single different clip, and try and put the content sort of in the center of whatever frame you choose. All right. Now, what's interesting about this is that, some of the images are centered, some are off center, something like that fly is like off to the left. This shot of Michael's off to the right. This shot of Michael's off to the left. Like that's the region of interest. So you can run auto-reframe on an entire sequence of individual clips, like this one that you see here, all right, just by going to the sequence menu and choosing auto-reframe sequence. Now, when you do that, it pulls up this dialog, all right. You can choose whatever aspect ratio you want or a custom aspect ratio. So if you have you can't see that, sorry. So if you want a specific, maybe you want a 5:4 or some other flavor, 2.35:1, like we discussed, whatever. You can do that here. You have a motion tracking option. I never move this off default. If you're doing like a lot of stuff that has a lot of high speed motion, maybe switch it to faster motion. And then some clip nesting options here. Again, most people won't necessarily have an issue with that. Now, when you do this on a full sequence, this is going to take some time to process. So I actually ran this on this sequence. So what's nice about it is when you run it on the sequence, you still have the exact same layout. It copies the sequence, makes a copy, and then it reframes each individual clip. So let me just scrub through this and you'll kind of get an idea of how it sort of framed. So we totally like lost Michael on the side there. It was focusing. Remember, he was on the right side. We lost it. This one, it brought him back in the center. This one, it's focusing on text. Okay. Now remember, in this one, he was on the right. It actually auto-reframed over to him. Our bug was on the left. It kept it right in the center. All right, that one's pretty obvious. Didn't quite catch our ghost Michael here. Got like half of his body there. Now, again, you can reconfigure these in the effects controls. You have the ability to adjust the position of your auto reframe. So you have total control over this. Just trying to showcase to you that when you run it on something like this, and look, see at the very end there, it did a really nice, this is also reframing in square, okay? If we were to take something like this Masterclass promo, let's take this one here. Now this is already edited. Let's go ahead and auto reframe. And let's do this one as vertical just to see what happens, all right? Click create. Okay, it builds a new sequence. It's analyzing. Now, you used to see the analysis in the window here. I must admit, I just noticed it's now showing it to you down there. I didn't see that. And by the way, does that mean it's done? I guess it's done. I don't know why it's still lingering there. Now this one's a little challenging, right? Because it's me in an interface of the UI. So this is not really an ideal vertical candidate, you know? You can see it did a pretty nice job though of me looking quite handsome there, if I do say so myself. Let's just take a quick look what it did here. Hi, I'm just gonna scrub through it. So it did a good job on both of the shots of me. And then when we get into the interface, like it's trying to follow the cursor. Yeah, like it kinda got it. It didn't really know what to do. By the way, all that movement, that's auto reframe using AI to physically move the camera. So it's trying to follow where the action is happening, even though this was look, I'm talking about the AEP. It did it. It's doing a good job. And then when it gets back to me, I'm right front and center. By the way, Kevin, why is this still on down here? Why is that still there? That needs to go away. What is this info thing? Great. Why is it still showing me that? Click, 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 click. This is where, you know what? 1,000 times I would start doing that now, okay? Ooh, nice stopped frame of me. Good one. Okay, so auto-reframe, super great for social sharing and converting your videos into different aspect ratios, different formats, different frame sizes. Unfortunately, everybody, this is all the time we have. I'm gonna have to switch back to my camera here before the ban hammer comes. Let me check some of the questions. The excitement about Shark Puppet interrupted my question earlier. Uh-oh. All right. Okay. Yep, every video. So Kevin's using that logo overlay. Love that. Armando, the thumbnail shown on the offline video too. Oh, now Armando, that's something different. The offline thumbnail. Yeah, that has to do with, I think it just picks like the center of the video. I don't know about that. In any case, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.